Hey everyone! So you may notice this background is kind of familiar. Moving out of here and moving stuff into the new studio has gone a lot slower than I was wanting, but yeah, what are you gonna do? It's a big space and I need a lot of furniture and storage solutions, and that kind of stuff is expensive. So this whole process is going a lot slower than I had originally intended. So you may see a couple more videos filmed here, but yeah, we'll see. So I'm on a crocheting / knitting kick now, ever since kind of dipping my toes back in with the planter from last week. And I've been digging through my yarn stash and trying to find different yarns to make random stuff. I'm doing these as personal projects for me, so I don't know if I'll show them on the channel, maybe on my Instagram. Anyway, in one of my projects that I wanted to do, I really wanted to use 2 different colors, but one of the yarn colors was twice as bulky as the original one that I had been using. But thankfully it was a 2-ply yarn, where it's 2 strands wrapped together kind of. I thought that maybe with that one skein of yarn I could take each ply and separate it. So I'm going to show you guys how I separated one skein of 2-ply yarn into 2 balls of yarn. This is kind of a little quick tip, but if you are a crocheter or a knitter, or you just use yarn for whatever crafts that you do, you may find this helpful. So let's get started. You'll need yarn that's 2 or more ply, a dowel or a cardboard tube, tape, a plastic bag, and a twist tie. So here's the yarn that I've been knitting with, and this is the yarn that I want to change to. You can see how it's twice as bulky. Thankfully it's 2-ply, so I can easily separate it. First you need something to wrap the yarn around. I've seen people use cardboard paper towel rolls, but I decided to use this dowel turned gigantic knitting needle. Stick the ball or skein of yarn into a plastic bag, keeping the end of the yarn out of the bag. Use the twist tie to close the bag like so. You might have to adjust the tension a few times to get it right. You want to be able to pull the yarn out still, but not too easily. You'll get a feel for how tight or loose you want to make the twist tie once you start rolling the yarn. Take the end of the yarn that's sticking out of the bag and split it in half. Tape each end onto the dowel or cardboard tube, and then roll it a couple times to get it started. Then pick up the whole thing, letting the yarn bag hang. This is when you'll figure out if your tension is good or not. Basically, you want it to be able to hang without the yarn coming out too quickly. I preferred it so that it wouldn't come out at all until I tugged at the bag, or I kind of bounced it, I guess, and then the weight of the bag would kind of let more out. So keep rolling the yarn onto your dowel or cardboard tube, using your hands to keep the yarn in the right place. As you roll it up, you'll notice the bag is spinning. This is why it's easiest to do this with the bag of yarn hanging. Plied yarn is spun around itself to keep it together, so when you start to unravel it, it needs to twist in the opposite direction of the ply. Just continue this until you've rolled up the rest of the yarn. Once that's done, you'll have something like this: 2 spools of yarn on the dowel, or cardboard, or whatever you use. I like to re-roll these into easier to manage yarn balls. To do so, carefully slip off the dowel. Take the end of the yarn and hold on to it with your fingers, with the end coming out at your pinky. Then start wrapping it around your thumb. Not too tight, you don't want to cut off your circulation. Once it's bulky enough, start wrapping the yarn at a diagonal a couple times. Then, still wrapping at a diagonal, start slightly moving the wrap over so it's not just building up the yarn in one spot. When it's big enough, pull it off your thumb, keeping the tip of your thumb in the hole, and keep wrapping. You'll want to keep track of this hole if you are going to use it as a center pull ball of yarn. That's where the end of yarn is going to come from, so you don't want to cover it. If you don't want to use it as a center pull ball, then you don't really have to worry about keeping track of that hole, so you don't really need to stick your thumb in it still. So I used this end of the yarn that came from the middle because that's the yarn end that I like to pull from the skein. But I wasn't thinking about how this yarn still had a bit of a twist from being twisted into a plied yarn, so it got tangled super quick. So I would not recommend pulling from the middle. I put this aside to make the second ball with the other yarn, this time using the yarn end coming from the outside. I went back off camera and untangled the other ball and finally finished twisting it into its own little ball of yarn. So once you've rewound the yarn, you're all set to use these in your projects. Here's this new rewound yarn compared to the old one that I was trying to match. I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, please leave a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, all of that good stuff. If you want to follow me on any of my social media, they'll be linked down below. If you have any questions or suggestions for future videos, please leave a comment down below, and I'll see you next week. Thank you so much to my patrons for helping me produce this video. If you like my videos and have learned something from them, please consider supporting me on Patreon to help me continue to make them. It's totally optional. I'll still be making videos either way. It just helps me be able to put out better stuff. A link will be down below, or you can just click up here in the corner.